Sound like an invitation. Welcome. If I could call to order the meeting of the Glendora City Council for Tuesday, May 9th. For the audience here tonight, Glendora utilizes a hybrid meeting format that allows for participation both in person and virtually. In consideration of others, if you're in the audience, please silence your electronic devices and refrain from speaking. Let the record show that all council members are present and accounted for, and I would ask that the city attorney read us into closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council and any who may be following us virtually online. During this city council special meeting, there will be only 2 items on the agenda. Both involve closed session items. The first is a closed session authorized by Government Code Section 54957 regarding the possible threat to public services or public facilities. The second involves real property negotiations pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8 and involves the property commonly known as the Dale Road property, whose assessor parcel number is printed in the closed session agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bill. With that, I will go ahead and open public comment. If you're in attendance, please fill out one of the speaker cards. If you're participating on Zoom, please use the raised hand icon in order to participate in public comment. There is no one in person wishing to speak at public comments or anybody on Zoom.
We have people on Zoom, but it's all staff and consultants, so we have no one.
Okay, then I will close public comment and I will reassess us into closed session at 5:02. Welcome, everybody. We will reconvene our meeting back into open session at 7:02 PM and ask the city attorney to read us out of closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen. The city council in its special council meeting tonight had only two items on that agenda. They were both closed session agenda items. The first dealt with a potential threat to public services or public facilities. The second involved real property negotiations involving the property at the Dale Road. There was in both cases a privileged and confidential briefing. Questions were asked and answered. No reportable action was taken. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, appreciate it. Where are we at with that? If
We-
I would ask that everybody stand.
Well,
and-
no. We need to
do I do?
adjourn the special meeting and convene the regular meeting now.
Okay, then I will adjourn the special meeting at 7:03 and open the regular meeting
Correct.
at 7:03:30. Okay. With that, all council members are here and present, and if everyone would please stand and join us in an invocation led by Pastor Rio Martinez of Glendora Alliance Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Deputy City Clerk Roxanne Bracetta.
Let us pray. Mighty God, I thank you for
your mercy and righteousness, for the sweet compassion you shower us with every day. We lift up our prayers to you, knowing that you hear us. Thank you for blessing the city of Glendora with wise leadership. Rest on them and guide them by your hand. And we thank you for blessing us with the residents who make Glendora a true community, a special place to live, work, and thrive. We ask you to fill this chamber with your presence and with your counsel as this meeting takes place. In all things, may justice and peace be ever at the forefront of the agenda, and may Glendora continue to prosper by your hand and by the actions of her people. In light of recent violence that has taken place throughout the country and nearby, now more than ever, we ask that you continue to bless and protect our first responders. I pray that you have special favor and blessing on the Glendora Police Department and other first responders who work tirelessly and selflessly to provide protection for the citizens of Glendora. And we pray for those who are in our military, who are deployed, and who are at the forefront of ensuring that we maintain peace and security in our country. Lord, continue to protect our schools and our teachers and those who are pouring all of their resources, all of their time and their effort into our children. Please bless the remainder of this evening. In the name of Jesus, we pray, amen.
Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you, Pastor and Roxanne. And Roxanne, welcome aboard. Roxanne's brand new with us. Been here how long?
A little over a week.
Okay, we haven't embarrassed you yet, but the night's not over, so stay tuned. Okay, at this time, does anyone wish to reorder or request anything be added to the agenda? No? Okay, with that, I will open public comment. Members of the public that would wish to speak a public comment need to fill out one of the comment cards and get it to the clerk. You'll have 3 minutes to address the council on any items off or on the agenda. Those who are participating on Zoom, if you'd use the raised hand icon, we'll do the people that are here in person first. And I will start with Hector Rojero Jr. Welcome, Hector.
Good to be here, Council. Thank you for having us and thank you for your leadership. I am a resident here at Glendora, but I come to you as a board member of Project 2911. It's a food bank in Covina, and we serve all of LA County. Last year, we helped over 40,000 individuals, and we're known as one of the food banks that give in abundance. And I wanted to ask if there's a way where we could, you know, have the nonprofit, in a list of resources or anything on the Glendora website or any kind of list of resources, just so we could help more Glendorians out who could possibly be going through difficult times. And as well, I do want to make an invitation to each of the council members to an open house we're having on June 7th. I have the invitation here for each one of you. So you guys could come over just so you could see the facility and what we do. And we do have we are known for being one of the food banks who give in the most abundance. We give about 60 pounds of food per family, per household. And we are there every Fridays. I don't know if you guys have heard of Project 2911, the food bank. No.
No, actually not, but go ahead and share with us and we'll respond when we're done with the public comment.
Okay. I'm pretty much it with the core of it. I could go into a little bit more details, but basically it just it would be great if we could be put in a list of resources for for the Glendorians residents to use us as a resource, as well. In any kind of social media you do, just we're there as an option because we do serve all of LA County, and we are part of the network for LA Regional Food Bank. That's the county-wide food bank, and we do go and pick up food from different grocery stores locally as well. But we do have the main thing was that, plus the invitation for June 7th from 6 to 8 p.m. And we're located right behind the police department and fire department of Covina City. Right across the street is our facilities. But that's pretty much it. And hopefully I could get a commitment from any of you guys by the end of the night to come and show up. That'll be great. But if you have to think about it, there are RSVP number where you could go ahead and call and do an RSVP.
Okay, if you could share the invitation with Roxanne, and she'll get it to all of us, and I'm sure we'll get back to you.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we got Gerald Decker.
Thank you, Mayor and council members here. Actually, the name is Delker, which is very appropriate because I'm the president of the Elks Lodge, so I'm the D Elker. I'm happy to hear, I should say I'm in Doherty, but the reason is our lodges have all merged now, and we covered all the way from east of West Arcadia, all the way out to Pomona. So you're actually in our service area now. And I want to let you know what we as Elks are doing for your community. The biggest project we have is the dictionary for third grade students. The school district has been very helpful with us. Every third grade student, both in private and public schools, are receiving this. We do over 3,000 dictionaries a year. We also I do a Bikes for Kids program. A while back, you had some bike programs here where I came over. I did bike repair and donated helmets to them. This year, I'm buying another 250 helmets, which I'm doing to some cities out there. If I have some contacts here in Glendora, I could possibly get helmets to them, so the police departments, so like that, I can give out to the students so they're wearing helmets. So this way, they're safe when they're riding their bicycles. We do a lot of other things too, scholarships, American essay contests, all that for them. I do a free haunted house. It's the only area there's a non-scary haunted house in the Saturday before Halloween. We do a free children's Christmas party. But let me go into a more important thing that we do that supports your community is our veterans program. The Elks have been doing it for 75 years. I'll leave you these brochures here about what they've done. In fact, the Elks actually built the first VA hospital in Massachusetts at the end of World War I and donated it. They also built 2 field hospitals during the war too. They furnished the CVs too. Our lodge actually I do dinners for the veterans in El Monte on the 4th and 5th Wednesday every month. And from our national lodge, we've actually have received donations or contributions of last year, $22,500 to support the community and all these things, $15,000 went just for veterans. And the idea I wanted to mention too, that's very important in the area that can help out too, is we have a special program that the National Lodge even supports too. If you happen to have veterans that are moving into a new facility and they need a house in it, I need supplies. We have a $300 move-in kit that we can put together for them of blankets, towels, cleaning supplies, all this nature, pots and pans, and another $300 for a bed. That all comes from our national and beyond the other money we get for them too. So if you have any need for that, be able to contact our lodge. In fact, I've got a little flyer here I'll also leave with you, telling about our lodge. In fact, someone put this together and said, over the years, our lodge has donated $4.8 million back to our communities. Now, we also the lodge too. We have available to help support all this. We have our other activities. We're doing, back in June, we're taking our veterans out to the ball game at Rancho Cucamonga. Hey, if anyone wants to come along, $20. They're normally $30 tickets. We just did a great Cinco de Mayo party to raise money. We do a barbecue coming up here too. And so we're doing a lot of things like this in the communities. And use a local area just to find some support for anybody needing a party for like a hatch match, dispatch and everything in between. So that's a very short synopsis of it. Oh, by the way, I do have for all of you a copy of a sample of our lodge pins. I'll leave with you. About 10 of them here, 9. That actually sets our goals here. It says Doherty Lodge 1427, growing elkdom in our communities. And that is our goal, is to grow elkdom throughout the communities here and how we ever support you. So if you have any programs that need support, just contact us. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Gerald. Up next, I've got Marcia Uros. Welcome, Marcia.
Thank you. And good evening, Mayor and council members and staff. I'm going to continue the nonprofits theme in public comment. My name is Marcia Yaros. I'm a 32-year resident of Glendora, and I'm the League of Women Voters observer for this city council. On Sunday, June 11th, 2023, from 2 to 3 p.m., the 10 observers in the Mount Baldy Area League will deliver their reports on their observations to the League of Women Voters on the agencies that they have been observing. I believe this invitation was already sent to staff and hopefully has been disseminated, but if not, I'll leave a copy. And this will be held in person in Claremont at Garner House on Indian Hill Boulevard in Claremont. And it'll also be available on Zoom, and you are all invited. We also will hope to have edited reports distributed to you by August. And if you like, I can come and present that in person as well. So thank you for welcoming the observation process. And I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Marcia. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak? No. Do we have anybody on Zoom?
All we have on Zoom is actually staff and representatives, so nobody.
Okay, we're good. Then I will close public comment and I will bring it back to respond to Hector. Is that we have staff that is very involved in a lot of things, both working with our community services department and police department. We'll make sure and get your contact information to them and somebody will be in touch because we're always looking for resources. So we'll have the ability to do that. And I will almost guarantee you, at least one of us will be at the open house. I'm sure we'll be able to fit it in at that time. So I appreciate you coming by. Okay. At this point, time for member statements. I'll bring it back to council. Who wants to go first? Michael?
So is the League of California, is League of Women Voters, are they going to give us a good report?
We'll see on the
Sneak
11th.
report?
BBD.
BBD. So,
Good one.
You open yourself up for that.
like normal. So I had a conversation this week with one of our legislators, actually it was last week, time flies, about the state of our economy and this for the budget coming up for the state of California. And so some interesting things came up of it. The governor's California budget is proposed to be $223.6 billion with a projected shortfall of $22.5 billion. That was as the original one that he put out there. The May revise, which is coming out this Friday, I just found out today, is projected to be maybe a little higher in the deficit. And on top of that, there is about an $18 billion federal loan that the governor took out for COVID decided not to pay it back through the budget process, but is contemplating putting this on a payroll tax. So everyone's going to have to pay for that process, if you will. The state has $35.6 billion in reserve, about 16% of their budget, compared to Glendora's around 45% of our budgets in reserve. The state liabilities is $362,873,000,000 and change. If we were to liquidate everything, we'd still have a debt of about $55 billion in the state. There are a number of new taxes being proposed in the Capitol. Don't know if they're going to get out of their committees and what's going to happen with that, but be prepared because they're looking for funds everywhere. On somewhat of a lighter note, but more appropriate for what we're dealing with in our community and both the nation and the world right now, I took it upon myself to look up something that Mr. Robert Fulghum had said back in 1986, about 37 years ago. It's what all I really need to know I learned in kindergarten. Bear with me. So first one, share everything, play fair, don't hit people, put things back where you found them, clean up your own mess, don't take things that aren't yours, say you're sorry when you hurt somebody, wash your hands before you eat, flush, warm milk and cookies are good for you, live a blessed life, learn something, think something, and draw and paint, and sing and dance, and play and work every day, some. Take a nap every day, Mendel. When you go out in the world, watch out for traffic, hold hands, and stick together. Be aware of wonder. Remember the little seed in the styrofoam cup. The roots go down, the plants go up, and nobody really knows how or why, but we are all like that. Goldfish and hamsters and white mice and even little seeds in the styrofoam cup all die, so do we. And then remember the Dick and Jane book and the first words you learn. The biggest word of all, look. And there's a quote that he had that I thought was interesting and apropos. Think of what better world it would be if we all, the whole world, had cookies and milk all there at 3 o'clock every afternoon, and then lay down with our blankie for a nap. Or if all governments had the basic policies to always put things back where they found them and to clean up their own mess. And it is still true, no matter how old you are, when you go out into the world, it is best to hold hands and stick together. I thought with what we are going through right now with the stresses and people I talk to on a regular basis every day, everyone's on edge. They're waiting for something to pop. And I think that these words of wisdom that are 37 years old roughly, that is good wisdom to remember who we are and what we are and to look out for each other, because it's extremely important for us to be a civil society moving forward and for us to have things like this in a meaningful manner. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Michael. Mendel?
Michael, thank you, and Mayor, thank you. Michael, your words are appropriate for all of us, especially as we look ahead and honor our moms. And I think what you said, we've learned a lot from our moms. And although mine has passed, I want to say thank you to all of the moms. The daughter that I have, the daughter-in-law that I have, and the wife that I have. And Karen, thank you for the service that you give and the mom that you are to your two great girls. And I just hope that Sunday we can pause and reflect on that and tell them thank you. And if they're not here, then just reflect on what they've done for us. Teachers are also an important thing. And last week was Teachers Week. The daughter that I have is a 7th grade teacher. And I don't know about you, but junior high is some of the most toughest years of school. And I see some smiles out there. You either have experienced that or you have kids that have experienced that. And seventh grade is an interesting, grade. And I want to say thank you to all of the teachers that we have here in town that mold and shape, direct the kids that we have. So thank you for everything that you do. And with that, that's all.
Okay, thank you. David.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to announce a couple of upcoming opportunities in the next month or so. Certainly as our school students approach the graduation and the conclusion of their school year, wish them well, be smart during the summer and go off and do things and be ready to come back and hit it again well in the next fall. The end of this month is Memorial Day, the traditional start of summer and a holiday that we all revere greatly. I'm pleased to announce that the Fairmount Pioneer Cemetery will once again conduct an outdoor open live observance to recognize our first responders, our local heroes, some civic leaders, very apolitical, but recognizing the locals that do good things for our community. It's at 11:30 at the cemetery, so everybody's welcome. Please visit. Also, a fitting program with Flag Day coming up on June 10th at the Rowley Wilderness Amphitheater up in Big Dalton Canyon. The Serrano chapter of the Daughters of American Revolution, in conjunction with the Scouts BSA Troop 483 from Glendora, will be holding a flag retirement ceremony and program. Again, the public is invited and welcome to come see a very reverent, respectful service about our retirement of flags. With that, thank you very much.
Okay, I thought I'd leave Karen for last, as she's mom to us a lot of times as well. Thank you.
And I will just let that go. And I had the opportunity, Mendel, to visit your daughter's class last week. Yes, and she was doing an outstanding job, so very nice. Also on Memorial Day, Oakdale will be having a service at 11 a.m. So for anyone that wants to participate in that, they're doing that in conjunction with a couple American Legion posts. So that will be at 11 at Oakdale.
Okay, I would like to just report, had the opportunity to go to a conference representing the city last week for the Southern California Association of Governments. And it's all about housing. The entire 3 days we're talking about, the need that we have for housing, the need that we have for affordable housing. There's a lot of people working on this. Nobody has a solution. So it's just important to know that this is an issue that everyone's dealing with throughout the state. And it's not just a local issue for us. So we'll continue to be working on those issues. Reminder, it's a little bit early, but Rotary is starting to get ready for the annual Field of Heroes that we do the 4th of July. Believe it or not, we're talking about the 4th of July already. So if you are interested in honoring one of your heroes or maybe sponsoring the event, contact your local Rotarian. And then last, I'd like to ask that we adjourn our meeting tonight in memory of Diane Norman. It's, so many times we have the opportunity to adjourn in somebody's memory. Very few times is it somebody that we can all consider a friend. I'm guessing most people that are here tonight had some interaction with Diane or her husband Gordy at one point in their lives. Diane was a longtime member of the Kiwanis Club. She was involved in so many things. The list would just go on. But you think about it, and especially as we're all getting older on a regular basis, it's Gordy and Diane were honored as Citizens of the Year. I want to say probably 2010, 2012, something around there. But they were a team because they did so many things together. And the hard to think about the fact it's not, when you're talking about them, that it's not going to be Gordy and Diane anymore. But I guarantee you, Diane will still be with us. She'll still be scolding us from time to time about things that we may not be doing just exactly right. And Gordy is doing very well, and keep him and his family in your prayers. With that, Adam.
Just a quick update from me this evening. the schedule before you, apologize for those of you who are trying to read all the small information. We're going to test your eyes later. This is a Gantt chart, talks about implementations of two major IT projects the city council approved in 2022, about $2.5 million worth of IT projects. First implementation from Tyler is our financial HR and payroll management system, which is currently underway. We have major milestones throughout this calendar year with looking at early implementation in the first half of 2024. On a simultaneous process, we are also working on our enterprise permitting and licensing, and that affects land development when you come into building and engineering planning, as well as code enforcement. That will kick off in a little more earnest in the next 6 months, and we're looking at an implementation at the end of 2024 with some modules in the first part of 2025. And so while these dates are out there, when you come into City Hall, our goal is always to provide you the best customer service and also the ease of accessing information and accessing your city. So two transformative projects for us. The end result is mobile applications and other ways to communicate with the cities. You'll be able to follow your permit for your patio cover from date of implementation and paying your fees and seeing who has it and what the comments are in real time. And with the with the HR payroll and financial management system for a lot of the vendors getting paid in real time and being able to sign up for alerts and so on and so forth. So just a really brief update. Council invested again a lot of money at the end of 2022, 2.5 million, and we'll look forward to these implementations occurring over the next 24 months from now. Thank you.
Thanks. Bill, anything?
Thanks. Nothing
Okay.
from me.
Okay, we'll move on to a couple of special items we have tonight. First up, we have a presentation of a proclamation by the city council designating May 14th through 20th, 2023 is National Police Week, and May 15th, 2023 as Peace Officers Memorial Day. Karen, you're going to present that?
Yes, thank you. Whereas every day across the country, peace officers stand watch over our citizens, selflessly risking their lives to protect families, homes, businesses, and neighborhoods against crime. And whereas law enforcement officers choose their profession and take oaths, knowing that theirs is a dangerous job. They work to protect our communities and place themselves in harm's way in defense of others. And whereas we remember Glendora Police Officer Louis Pompey, who made the ultimate sacrifice protecting the lives of others, we commemorate the 28th anniversary of his heroic actions and end of watch, June 9th, 1995. And whereas on Peace Officers Memorial Day and throughout Police Week, we honor the memory of the fallen and recognize those who devote their lives to enforcing our laws, bringing criminals to justice, and making our communities a safe place to live. Now, therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Glendora, do hereby proclaim the week of May 14th through the 20th, 2023, as National Police Week, and salute the men and women of the Glendora Police Department for their courage, commitment, and service to the residents of Glendora. We ask residents to join in honoring law enforcement officers, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal commitment to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to our community. We also proclaim Monday, May 15th, 2023 as Peace Officers Memorial Day to honor the service of all law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice and service to their communities. And witness whereof the mayor hereunto has set his hand and caused the seal of the city of Glendora to be affixed this 9th day of May, 2023. And I believe that Officer Stephen Houck is going to.
Thank you for this gift. It means a great deal to receive this on behalf of the Glendora Police Department, the officers that serve on a daily basis and risk their lives, and the officers that paid the ultimate price. When an officer goes to work every day, it's always in the back of their head that they may not return home. It's that I love you to your family, significant others, and friends that bear special significance to police officers in that it may be the last. It's this sense of purpose that makes this job more than just a mere occupation. It's this sense of purpose that drives us to live a life dedicated to safeguarding others from the traumas of evil. My mom begged me not to be a police officer, and I couldn't explain to her why I had to be one. It was a calling that I could just not stop. It's the same calling and sense of purpose that we all feel that drove Glendora PD's only fallen officer, Agent Louis Pompey, to be called into action when he witnessed a robbery occur on his day off. He witnessed a criminal violently assault a developmentally disabled store clerk, and he intervened, successfully stopping any further injury to the store clerk and leading to the ultimate capture of all three criminals. However, not without the cost of his own life. In high school, my senior yearbook quote was the following: "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." And at the time, I thought this only applied to police officers and soldiers, but with time came to realize that this applied to all society, but most importantly to community leaders like yourselves. So it's with that I'm honored to work for a city that prioritizes the safety of their community and justice, and supports the law enforcement in a way that creates a city that's safe for people to live, work, and visit. Thank you.
And we'd also invite the community to join the police department on May 15th at 10 a.m. on the front steps as they take a few moments to honor those who have fallen in this last year.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, our next proclamation is a proclamation to declare May 7th through 13th, 2023 as Correctional Officers Week. And Michael, you're going to present this?
Yes, thank you, Gary. Whereas correctional officers have the difficult and often dangerous assignment of ensuring the custody, safety, and well-being of inmates in our nation's prisons and jails. And whereas correctional officers are committed to ensuring public safety by establishing and maintaining security within the facilities and supervising prisoners' conduct and behavior to avoid conflicts and escapes. And whereas correctional officers strive to maintain a safe working environment in the jails facilities, often in the face of challenges and danger that threaten their own safety. And whereas it is fitting to recognize and honor our correctional officers for the important tasks they perform each day, for the many risks they take to provide for our security, and for the sacrifices they make to protect the citizens of Glendora. A total of 1,427 prisoners were booked in 2022, averaging over 119 bookings per month. Now, therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Glendora, do hereby proclaim May 7th through May 13th, 2023 as Correctional Officers Week in the City of Glendora in recognition of the men and women who are a vital component of the Glendora Police Department operations. In witness hereof, the mayor has hereunto set his hand and caused the seal of the City of Glendora to be affixed this 9th day of May 2023. And I believe Officer Alfonso Magana is going to receive.
On behalf of myself and your jailers, Atkins, jailers Allen, and jailer Stearns, I'd like to thank you for this recognition to you and the City Council of the city. We are your jailers, so thank you very much for this recognition.
Hey, Alfonso. Yeah, you talk about it, but it's great to be part of a community where you know that you've got support. And I think everybody in the department understands that not only the council, the staff, but the entire community has your support at any time. So appreciate all you do. We will move on to the first of our public hearings, which is a public meeting to receive testimony regarding a proposal to levy and collect assessments for the fiscal year 2023-24 for the Glendora Village Business Improvement District. I'll declare the public hearing open at this point and invite management analyst Alicia Saniga to report. Welcome, Alicia.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Boyer and Council. Tonight is the first of two public hearings regarding the renewal of assessments for the Business Improvement District. A quick reminder, the process to levy and collect assessment is initiated by the bid board, who approved the annual plan back in early March. The annual plan included the boundaries of the bid, a list of activities, and the budget for fiscal year 24, as well as the assessment methodology that was used. This was then provided to the City Council, who approved the annual plan back on March 28th. These next few slides should look pretty familiar, so I'll go through them pretty quickly. But here we have a map of the downtown Glendora Village and the bid boundaries. Boundaries are primarily defined by Bennett, Vista Bonita, Foothill Boulevard, and Vermont. Also included is the shopping center across from City Hall. The assessment methodology for fiscal year 24 will remain the same as the current fiscal year 22-23, with assessments ranging from a low end of $0 to a high end of $600 per year. Another quick look at the previously approved fiscal year 2023-2024 budget. We have revenue sources with each line item budget there on the left, looking at an anticipated generated revenue of roughly $97,800. And expenditures on the right there, which include marketing, landscaping, activities, and miscellaneous items for the bid at an estimated total of a little over $150,000. Just to recap a few of the dates as they relate to this process, City Council adopted a resolution of intent to levy assessments for members of the Business Improvement District at their last meeting on March 28th. On April 4th, staff went ahead and mailed out a copy of the adopted resolution and annual report to the affected businesses, as well as a notice of both public hearing dates. Public hearing notices were also published in the San Gabriel Valley Examiner on April 6th, 13th, and the 20th. Tonight, May 9th, is the first of two public hearings again. And on May 23rd, the City Council will then hold the second and final public hearing. At that time, the public and members of the bid will once again have the opportunity to provide testimony, and any protest votes will be tabulated at that time. In the absence of 50% of a weighted protest vote, the City Council may adopt a resolution to levy and collect assessments for the upcoming fiscal year. The only required action for the City Council at this time is to conduct the public hearing and receive testimony from members of the bid or the public regarding the proposed assessments. So at this time, I will go ahead and turn it over back to the City Council.
Okay, thanks, Alicia. At this time, I'll open public comment for the hearing. If anybody wishes to speak in person, please fill out one of the cards. I don't see any cards or anyone raising their hand. Is anybody on Zoom wishing to speak?
No, I don't have anybody other than just staff.
Okay, then I will close public comment and bring it back to council for any additional comments. Anything? None? Well, I've got at least one question. There's an item on the expenditures of a $50,000 event. It said new event. Do we have any idea what they're talking about?
Not at this time. We do plan on holding a workshop, which we discussed a few meetings ago. At that time, we'll discuss possibilities, what would be most beneficial to the bid and what they're looking to do moving forward. So at this time, no, could be an activity, could be professional services. It has not yet been decided.
Oh, okay. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I had. No sense asking for a motion because I'm sure it's up here as soon as it comes up. We have a motion by Karen Davis and a second by David Friedenoff, and ask if everybody would vote.
I'll conduct an oral roll call vote. Councilmember Ellis,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
Councilmember Freendall,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Thompson,
Yes.
Mayor Boyer,
Yes.
motion carries 5-0.
Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing. And then our next item is a 5-year consolidated plan, 2023 through 28. And annual action plan for fiscal year 2023-24 for the Community Development Block Grant Program. And I will declare the public hearing open.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. So we are going to talk about the Community Development Block Grant. So the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, is administered by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, in order to address concerns with affordable housing, anti-poverty efforts, and infrastructure development. Tonight, we're going to take a look at the 5-year consolidated plan, as well as the action plan for upcoming fiscal year 23-24. So first, we'll look at the 23-28 consolidated plan. This is a requirement under the CDBG program. We need to have one for every 5-year period. We are currently wrapping up the last 5-year period, and so we need to renew one for the 2023 to 2028 period. So the CON plan is going to include information on a needs assessment, establish a strategic plan with priority needs, and also include the first year annual plan. So as far as what you can use the CDBG funds for, it must meet a national objective. Those national objectives are to provide a benefit to low and moderate income persons, to eliminate slum and blight, or to meet an urgent community need. And the activity also must be one of the priority needs within the consolidated plan. So in order to go ahead and identify the priorities for the renewed 2023 to 2028 5-year plan, there was some community outreach conducted. And based on that community outreach feedback and needs, the 5 new priorities for the upcoming year were infrastructure and public facilities, economic and human development, public services, which is a new one this year, or for this 5-year period, fair housing, which is a requirement under the program, and then administration and planning. Okay, so this is a look at the activity for the upcoming year. It goes ahead and addresses the administration, which is roughly 38,000. That's for staff time, as well as our consultant to administer the program. Fair housing, which we contract with the Housing Rights Center, and then infrastructure, which is the Public Works project. In this case, it's going to be addition of 40 curb ramps and sidewalk improvements. So the total of the amount for this year's annual grant is $289,933. This is just a look with the map at where the improvements will be. It is basically right around the Gladstone area to the east and as well as to the west of Grand Avenue. And so just a review of the process for this, we had the first public hearing on March 14th. We initiated the 30-day public review period where the 5-year plan as well as the annual plan was available on the website. We also published it in the paper to let people know it was available, and it was also in City Hall under the Community Development Department as well as the City Clerk's office. And tonight is our second public hearing required. And so with council's approval, we will submit the action plan along with the consolidated plan to HUD. And so that concludes this report. The request is for council to open and conduct the public hearing to approve the 5-year plan as well as the annual action plan, and authorize the city manager to submit the application to HUD. And I'll add, we have received no public comments on this.
Okay, thank you, Valerie. At this time, I'll open public comment for the hearing and ask, do we have any public comment cards?
I have received none, and I don't
Anybody
have anybody on Zoom.
Anybody on Zoom? I'll close the public comment period. Bring it back to council. Anybody have any questions? David?
Yeah, I'd like to thank you and congratulate you on a program that continues to serve our community. And while $283,000 doesn't go far, I think you've found great uses for it and are serving a great neighborhood. So congratulations and thank you.
Anybody else? Mendel?
I was just wanting to ask, is this amount about the same as we've had in the past? Because I know it's gone up and down.
It fluctuates. It's roughly the same. It's a little lower this year.
Lower,
I
that's
think
what I
it was 314 maybe last year, 300 the year before. So it's kind of the same ballpark, but it is a little bit lower.
Can you, in just real quick, just kind of remind us all as to how that comes about? I mean, with all of the deficits that we hear about, should we expect this to continue to go down, or is a formula based on inflation, or?
I don't have the specifics on how the
Could have
allocation.
asked that this morning.
I
when
could
was
have looked
briefing.
into it for you, Adam.
Right.
You.
An equation probably longer than for
Well,
me
no,
to
I-
use,
and, you
sir.
know, I
That I
don't
could
need
have
No,
said.
it has to
I'm-
deal with
I'm just
how many,
curious, are we going
how
up
many
or down?
citizens do you have in your city
Oh,
where
okay.
we have a declining population slightly the last couple of years?
Okay.
Has to do with your socioeconomic status as a city. Cities over 50,000 are treated differently than cities under $50,000, which goes. So in broad terms, the economics and population size of your city have a lot to do with the
Okay.
allocation that's there. Plus at a federal programming level, the total amounts have been less the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
So there's less pie too.
Good, thanks. I support it.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Gary. Thank you for your presentation, Valerie. Do we have a time frame to get all the work done for all the ramps?
We should have it done by the end of the next fiscal year, but I'm guessing that hopefully that should be okay. I know sometimes our street projects are a little delayed because we do water work, which we want to do the water before we do the streets. But in this case, we're just doing curb ramps. So hopefully they'll be able to have it done by the end of the fiscal year, which will be June 30th of next year. Correct.
I didn't see that in the staff report, so,
It's typically, we're supposed to have it within the year.
okay, great. Thank you.
I do have a question. I was wondering, because as we are moving forward with the homeless shelter project, and some of these funds can be used for housing at different points, is there a possibility that we may be able to use some of this for that project in the future? And is there any additional opportunity for us to request any additional funds?
I don't think we can request additional funds, but there's a possibility for future if we do want to utilize some of those funds. The public service was one of those fields where we can, but there is a limit as to how much you can spend. And I want to say it's 15%, so it's not very much at all, but we can utilize a portion of it.
Well, as we move forward, we're going to be
Every
looking for
bit might
money
help.
everywhere. So this is one option, I guess, for us. Thank you, Valerie. I will close public comment and ask for a motion. And I see I have one by Karen and a second by Mendel. And if everyone would please vote.
Now conduct an oral roll call vote. Councilmember Ellis,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
Councilmember Freendo,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Thompson,
Yes.
Mayor Boyer.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. Next up, we have our consent calendar, items number 6 through 12. Items on the consent calendar will be enacted by one motion without individual discussion. Unless a council member has requested for an item to be pulled for discussion. Does anyone wish to pull or
Mayor,
comment
I'd
on
like to
anything?
pull item number 10.
Okay.
Pull or ask a question? Ask for clarification or a full discussion?
I'll ask for, just answer questions. That's fine.
Mm.
That'll work. Unless someone has a question, it's my question.
Okay, I was actually going to ask a question about that as well. Does anybody else have anything? Okay, so we want to ask. No, you can ask your question. Oh. Hey, oh, yep, come on up.
Good evening, council. I'd be happy to answer any questions about item number 10.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay, so this is just for the, ask for the $2 million with a 50% match, correct?
Yes, correct. So
Okay.
this is the resolution to attach with the application.
So what are we going to try to do if we don't get a grant? Is there other funds we can go look for? We're not gonna look at it for general fund money or what?
Yeah,
how
we're
is the
gonna,
project forward?
yeah, so we're gonna try to look for other grants to cover that other million or however much they won't cover.
Okay,
And Councilman, just to add a little to the question, if the grant is unsuccessful, I think that's sort of the crux of the question. We'll continue to try to search for money. And so Kelsey will look at every grant that comes available and we'll go down that path too.
so we'll be able to keep the project alive until we find some money.
Yeah, a council actually a while ago passed, this is one of the priority projects asking for state funding in the South Hills area. And so we'll continue to find money like our People Movement project as well.
Sure, is any of this possible for any federal money for something like this?
Federalized projects a little bit different than state projects, but if the right opportunity came across and the feds want to provide us millions of dollars, I'm sure Kelsey could find a way to spend it. So
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's a little question I have.
And I guess my question was a little different because we have a concept of what the park might possibly look like, but we really haven't have a plan in place. This is just a concept and it's still open to discussion. So we got a long way to go. This is the first step to try to find funds.
Correct, yes. So right now, we had a survey that went out to the community to kind of see what people were looking for. And we have contracted with Avid Trails just to provide a conceptual design. So they kind of took our survey results, put together a conceptual design so that they can try to provide us a ballpark number of how much it's going to cost so that we can apply for funds for it. So there's still room for things to change. Our designer is actually going to be meeting with our Trails Council this month to get their input and see what they have to say about the conceptual designs as well.
Perfect. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course.
It received a lot of attention on Earth Day.
Yes, it did. Yeah, we had our, I think the high school mountain bike club was all about it.
Big time.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, so with that, on the consent calendar, items number 6 through 12, we've got a motion by David and a second by Karen. If I'd ask everybody to please vote.
I'll now conduct an oral roll call vote. Councilmember Ellis,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Councilmember Freendall,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Thompson,
Yes.
Mayor Boyer,
Yes.
motion carries 5-0.
Okay, next up, item number 13, approve a contract with PlaceWorks, Inc. to prepare objective design standards for the zoning code, thereby replacing existing subjective design guidelines and prepare accompanying CEQA documents in an amount not to exceed $150,150. And planner Hans Fritos. I don't see Hans. Oh, it is on. Okay, there you are. Welcome, Hans.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. And I'm happy to be joining you virtually tonight. So, I'm here to request approval of a contract with PlaceWorks for professional services to prepare objective design standards for new developments, new development projects in Glendora for the zoning code and specific area plans. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, by way of some background, California housing law, Housing Accountability Act, et cetera, requires objective design standards for qualifying residential and mixed-use developments. Glendora currently has a mixture of objective and subjective design standards. Many are subjective, distributed throughout the current zoning code and specific area plans. So what exactly are objective design standards? They are development standards written as requirements rather than as guidelines. So, instead of buildings should face a street, it would be written as a requirement that, entrances to buildings must face a street or, must be visible from a street, that sort of a thing. So they're more predictable and there's sort of less discretion, really none in their sort of application. Creating I do want to mention that creating objective design standards was a city commitment under its SB2 grant award. And also one of the, I believe, item 28 of the 31 action items listed in the adopted housing element. Next slide, please. So some of our goals with this request for proposals that we initiated was to comply with state law, have one set of objective design standards that replace the distributed guidelines throughout the zoning code and specific area plans, and expand the standards beyond just residential types. The benefit here being is it will help encourage the type and quality of development the city wants by clearly articulating and broadcasting its architectural and site standards, in one place. And it's also easier to administer as well. Next slide, please. So the RFP process, or request for proposals process, the city initiated a competitive request for proposals process with 4 qualified firms submitting proposals. The proposals were scored by a panel of 4, which included interviews and reference checks. Staff recommended proceeding with Placeworks as they received the best overall evaluation. The work will take about 1 year and include robust public and stakeholder engagement. And they will do research and analyze our current code and guidelines, as well as, look at the different types of architecture in Glendora, et cetera, when they create their standards. The final standards will come through Planning Commission for a recommendation and review and City Council for adoption. Next slide, please. So the contract award request, the final contract award is for $136,500 plus a 10% contingency for a total of $150,000, just over $150,000. And that is to come from the General Plan Maintenance Fund. I do want to mention that any work done on this, some anticipates, some will, before or completed before September 30th, the city, we will seek reimbursement under SB2 grant funding for. And with that, next slide, please. I do want to mention that, staff recommends that council award this contract, and we do have I believe Alan Loomis, just as an FYI here, who's the project manager from Placeworks. I think he's also virtual with us on Zoom tonight. And with that, I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Hans. Bring it back to council questions. Michael?
Thank you, Mayor. Hans, thank you for your presentation. Is this part and parcel with the 6 housing element? And if so, the timing of this, does it have to dovetail into our adoption of zoning and for the housing element? Law is actually pushing and driving this.
Yeah, thank you. So there's a couple. I mean, yes, it's one of the commitments was to do, and I think I see Alan on here with us as well. So it was one of our commitments. Thank you for the question. I think it's commitment 28 in our adopted housing element is to do this. So it's part of that. And I think it's SB 35 and 330. The state requires under the Housing Accountability Act, objective design standards for qualifying residential developments. So that would be multifamily with affordable component. There's some other, we talked earlier about single family and multifamily zones. All our SB 9 and ADU stuff we've talked about in the past. Also, the state requires objective design standards for those as well. And then, we were sort of, so that I think that's sort of the state and local commitment to it. Also, in terms of the rezoning, there is going to be other housing element zoning coming forward for density and some of those other 31 items in the housing element. There will be a series of zoning amendments that come before City Council and Planning Commission before that over the next couple of, let's say 6 months. This is part of that, but it's a sort of standalone. We're treating it as a standalone thing. So as it requires a, third-party consultant to help us do the work.
So we're able to pass our rezoning laws to satisfy the state requirements for the 6 housing element and then amend it with this because this is going to take about a year to get done.
That's correct. We don't see these as being incompatible. So these will be separate design standards. The housing stuff that's going to be coming in a couple of months here is going to be adding some density to the specific area plans and stuff, but it's, density, floor to area ratios, but it's not going to be getting into like architectural or site specific standards. So they won't be incompatible with each other, if that makes sense.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, Mendel?
Hans, thank you. And the only question that I have is, have we used them for this type of work prior, or is this the first time?
Placeworks has done some work with the city before. I think, since I've been here, I think they've been working on some of the stuff that Stephen has worked with. Alan, you can probably, if he's online right now, tell us some of the stuff that Placeworks has done with the city before I started 2 years ago.
Yeah, we've done the work on the Meta Plazas and Bus Plaza, our landscape architecture team. Our CEQA team that does environmental reviews on an on-call contract with the city to assist in CEQA review. And that's the most recent work. This level of objective design standards work we've not done with the city of Glendora, but we've done this work with a multitude of cities around Southern California and Northern California.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I do want to mention, council member, that when we review consultants through the RFP process, we now use a matrix that part of that is like a reference check. And so through the RFP process, they submit cities where they've done similar work. And so we actually look through and review some of their work for all the people, all the firms that submitted for this with other cities in California. And then we call and check some of those references for our finalists.
Great, thank you.
Aaron, anything, David?
Yeah, thank you, Hans and Alan. Obviously, we're making this expenditure to satisfy the state mandated programs. I'm trusting that this helps us standardize our visions so that we are not losing our design element and architectural controls of what fits the city versus what the state is looking for. The state's going after by right legislation, and this helps us keep our vision. Is that accurate?
It should be, yeah. Part of the robust, the public engagement process that I talked about in planning commission, et cetera, will be to, through this process, uncover what is essential architecture in Glendora, what kinds of types of architecture do we want to see, and sort of, quantify that and then help us have better, higher quality architecture and be able to sort of communicate that more effectively to prospective developers in the city, get better outcomes, hopefully.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay, Hans, a couple questions. Does this address one of the issues that we have right now with the process of ADUs is the fact that currently we require that ADUs be the same architectural design as the main house? Does this address that?
We have ADU, we can include ADU design standards in this process for sure. I mean, our current code does require them to be the same. They're definitely a type of qualifying development. The state does say with ADUs and SB9, they have to have objective design standards. So this in some ways may supplant what we currently have and help clarify that, better communicate those standards.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it doesn't, should that be part of it, or is that something that we may be addressing at a later date?
I think it's more of a policy decision that probably has to run through the planning commission first. Is if you don't want the architecture to match, then that's a different conversation, because currently the requirement is it should match to the extent possible.
Well, I know we had talked about having that discussion at some point or another. I was just wondering if this was the time or probably not.
It could be a thing that comes up through this process. I mean, as we kind of go through public engagement and we hear about what's important to Glendorans and planning commission and city council through this process, if that's the direction we get, that maybe it's, not critical that the architecture with ADUs matches, then perhaps there could be a menu of architecture types or something for accessory dwelling units and SB9 units, or, just basic residential development types and classes that maybe come out of this.
And if we're looking for a more robust discussion on ADUs about size, proximity, location, road access, et cetera, that's a different conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
So it just depends on what the council would like to do. But as Hans mentioned, and perfectly so, it could be from a design element, but if you want to have a more robust discussion, that's something different.
Okay, if we wanted to do that, what would we need to agendize that on?
I would request that the council request to agendize that, and we'll give it to Jeff and his staff, and they'll filter that through the planning commission and to city council.
Okay, well, we can talk about it more before we make a formal request. But another question I had was, you mentioned any part of this process that's finished before August 31st, we may be able to get reimbursement through SB2.
That's correct. I actually think it's like the end of September now, but yeah, basically whatever the deadline is, I believe it's the end of September, whatever work Alan's, place work Alan's firm does before that period that we get billed for, we at the city will seek reimbursement from SB 24. So here in the budget request, we've asked for the full amount for the proposal, but maybe we get a quarter of that work gets done, or some percent in that time span, we will try to get reimbursement under that grant award for it.
Okay, or just get really busy and get it all done by August 31st. Anyway, appreciate it, Hans. We have a motion by Michael Alabus, a second by Mendel Thompson. If I could ask that everyone please vote.
Conduct an oral roll call vote. Councilmember Ellis.
Yes.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Councilmember Freendall.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Thompson.
Yes.
Mayor Boyer.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thanks, Hans.
Thank you, Mayor Council.
Next up, item number 14, consideration of a resolution relating to the levy of fiscal year 2023-24 assessment in connection with the Landscape Maintenance District Number 1. Contract Supervisor Andrea Miller to report. Welcome, Andrea.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I'm here tonight to provide annual report on the Landscape Maintenance District Assessment and Levy. This is the first step in a two-step process to renew the assessment tax that is collected with the 7 zones currently being maintained by the city. This tax provides a funding source for the continued operation and maintenance of the landscape improvements within the various zones of benefit for the upcoming fiscal year. In accordance with the 1972 Act, the district uses benefit zones to assess the variations in the nature, location, and extent of the improvements that provide special benefits to parcels in the district. The act requires that the cost of these improvements be levied across the benefits rather than the assessed value. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. I'm going to put on my glasses. So make things easier. Okay, in 2019, the district was comprised of 11 zones. However, the assessment tax was not sufficient to cover the maintenance costs, and it was decided to go out to ballot to increase the assessment revenue for 8 of these zones. While zones 1, 4, and 5 did not need to be balloted because they were sufficiently funded. As a result of the balloting, zones 2, 3, 11, and 15 voted against the increase and were subsequently detached from the district, leaving us with the 7 zones that currently make up the Landscape Maintenance District. Okay, there's. Oh, next slide. I can't work this. It's 4 buttons. Thank you. These next 2 slides include maps of the zones with the districts. Zone 1 is Highland and Oak Knoll, which has 10 parcels. Zone 4 is GMR and Palm, which has 31 parcels. Zone 5 is Sunflower and Hampton, which has 8 parcels. Next slide, please. Then we have Zone 7, Lorraine and Palm, that has 33 parcels. Zone 8, GMR and Boulder Springs, that has 33 parcels. Zone 12 is Glendora Bougainvilleas with 85 parcels. And last is Zone 16, Hidden Springs, which has 126 parcels. Next slide. The maximum authorized assessment rate for 6 of the 7 zones may be adjusted annually as high as the ratio between the prior year's March CPI and the current year's March CPI, but not to exceed 5%. The CPI ratio from last March to this March is equal to 3.65%. This percentage was applied to the 6 zones that allow for CPI adjustment, and the 1 zone that does not allow CPI adjustment will remain the same. Here we have the prior zone levy rates and the proposed rates for this coming year, with the increases ranging from $1.36 to $17.69. And there's more detailed explanation in the engineer's report. The annual estimated cost per zone seen here is divided equally among the number of parcels within that zone to determine the annual cost, or the EBU, or single family home. Next slide, please. In order to submit the assessments to the county for placement on the property bills, the city is required by law to follow certain steps, including the adoption of 3 resolutions that are before you now. Additionally, a public hearing is required and will be conducted at the June 13th council meeting. So tonight, staff requests that you approve The first of the three resolutions, number one being to initiate proceedings for the annual assessment levy. Number two, stating its intention to levy the assessment and setting the time and the place for the public hearing. And number three, approving the preliminary engineer's report. This concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks, Andrea. Bring it back. Any questions? No, Michael?
Just one quick question. Has any of the landscape districts that detached, do they want to come back?
As far as we can tell, no.
Thank you.
Okay, no other questions? It looks like I have a motion by Mendel, a second by Karen. Ask everyone to please vote.
Now conduct an oral roll call vote. Councilmember Ellis.
Yes.
Councilmember Davis.
Yes.
Councilmember Freendahl.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Thompson.
Yes.
Mayor Boyer.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, well, that's quick. You didn't even have time to go back and sit down and rest for a minute. did you?
No,
Thanks, Andrea.
not too bad.
Item number 15, consideration of a resolution relating to the levy of fiscal year 23-24 assessment in connection with the streetlight maintenance district number 1. Again, Andrea to present.
All right, thank you again. And I'm here tonight to provide the annual report for the streetlight maintenance district number 1. And again, this is the first of a two-step process to renew the assessment tax that is collected for the streetlight district. The district includes 2,996 public streetlights, with 2,744 owned by Southern California Edison and 252 owned by the city. Private streetlights, such as those owned by homeowner associations with gated communities, public streetlights, and other obsolete and no longer in service lights, such as the antique streetlights, public safety lights positioned atop traffic signals or traffic signals themselves are not funded by the district. Excuse me. As approved by the property owners in 2006, the maximum assessment rate may increase annually as high as the ratio between the prior March's CPI and this current March CPI. And again, the CPI from March 22nd to March 2022 to now is 3.65%. No, go back, I'm sorry. Back to the last slide. Parcels within the district are divided into two different benefit zones. Benefit B includes parcels within gated communities that are served by no public lighting other than perimeter lighting. And then benefit A includes all parcels other than those. Here we have the prior year's levy rate and the proposed rate for the upcoming fiscal year for benefit zones A and B. And again, a more detailed explanation is covered in the engineer's report. Next slide, please. The total cost for servicing and maintaining streetlights, safety lights, and traffic signals throughout the city is expected to be $737,129.25. A portion of this is for the general benefit of the entire city and is therefore paid through the general fund and the gas tax revenues. Only the special benefits may be funded through the streetlight assessment levy with an amount of $513,495.84 for fiscal year 23-24. Next slide. And again, in order to submit the assessment to the county for placement in the property tax bill, we are required by law to follow certain steps, including the adoption of these 3 resolutions. Additionally, a public hearing will be conducted on June 13th at the city council meeting. First of those resolutions is to initiate proceedings with the annual assessment levy. The second is to state its intention to levy the assessment and setting a time and place for this, for the public hearing, excuse me. And the third is to approve the preliminary engineer's report. That concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great report. We got a motion by Mendel and a second by David. Everyone would please vote.
Conduct an oral roll call vote. Councilmember Ellis.
Yes.
Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Freendahl.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Thompson.
Yes.
Mayor Boyer.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Right. Item number 16, authorize submitting an application for round 2 of the California State Library Building Forward Library Facilities Improvement Program, one of our strategic plan goals, and Michael Sled to report. Michael, welcome.
Oh, thank you all for having me. That was quicker than I expected. Not too bad. So Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Counselor. Tonight, I am here to discuss and request your approval to submit an application for round 2 of the California State Library's Building Forward Libraries Facility Improvement Program. The Building Forward program supports eligible capital projects for public library facilities in the state. And for round 2 of the program, $175 million of funding is available statewide. While projects for local libraries in high poverty areas are prioritized for funding, it's worth noting that during round 1 of the Building Forward program, approximately 18% of the awards were for library projects in communities evaluated as having the same or lower poverty than Glendora, meaning less poverty. So I know I get, because it's better to have more poverty for the grant, so it can get confusing sometimes trying to phrase it, but they had less poverty. So we have as good of a chance in theory as they did to be awarded. The maximum grant award is $10 million, and matching funds are typically required on a 1-to-1 basis through direct cash contribution. The city is eligible to request a match reduction to 50%, but must demonstrate that it is financially unable to provide the required match, and submitting a request does not guarantee a reduction even if a grant is awarded. Only one application per library facility will be accepted, and so we need to decide on which type of project to submit, or perhaps more accurately, whether to apply for a project that is to be a renovation or possibly a replacement or reconstruction. Grant-funded projects must be completed by June 30th, 2027. Just to briefly recap the current status of the library in the context of considering projects, the library is over 50 years old and has had documented issues with leaks essentially since it was first opened, and also has a history of structural issues, both of which the city has attempted to address in the past with mixed amounts of success. In 2021, while doing some initial evaluation for the potential of adding shade to the Bidwell Plaza, both as an amenity, but also to potentially address some of the water intrusion issues, visible cracking was noted in the beam system, and so a preliminary structural assessment was conducted. Based upon that evaluation, a more in-depth analysis and review was recommended and is currently underway with MHP. Eligible capital projects include those that are addressed critical maintenance needs, improve energy efficiency or sustainability, or expand digital or physical access. The library has a variety of needs that could be eligible for funding under this grant, with the most basic / urgent being those related to the structural integrity and water intrusion, followed by the building's mechanical, electrical, and plumbing related systems, and then an overall remodeling and modernization or even total replacement. With regard to the structural and water intrusion needs, MHP's analysis is ongoing, but based on findings so far, it is readily apparent that significant retrofitting and repairs are needed to the extent that it is recommended for the second story in particular to be precluded from large public assembly events until recommended strengthening measures can be implemented. Given that, outlined here are some rough estimated costs of different potential project types. As no construction design documents exist yet for these projects, estimates are fairly broad, even for the critical maintenance items. For the projects involving expansion or reconstruction, costs become even less defined due to questions around the extent of what those could be. It is clear, however, that a significant investment from the city will be needed to match a potential grant, and that for larger projects, even with the maximum grant amount, more than 100% match would be needed to complete them. This leads us to the financial impact discussion. No appropriation is necessary at this time to submit the grant application, but a general description of funding sources that have either been confirmed or that the city will be seeking to complete the project will be needed. If awarded, a resolution adopted by the city would be required to execute the grant agreement, and a letter from the city attesting to the availability of match funds would then be required before any grant funds are actually dispersed. Matching funds could include general funds, reserve funds, bond funds, borrowed funds, federal funds, and other non-state grant funding, or a combination. Other state funds cannot be used to match. As mentioned, the city may request a match reduction up to 50%, but there is no guarantee that this will be approved even if awarded a grant, so that the city should be prepared to match up to 100% if awarded. Thank you. That concludes my presentation. At this time, staff recommends the City Council consider project options and provide direction on the city's application proposal for round 2 of the California State Library's Building Forward Libraries Facility Improvement Program, and authorize the city manager to approve and certify the city's application. I'm happy to take questions.
Thanks, Michael. A lot of information compacted together there. Does who wants to start? David?
Yeah, thank you. And I certainly support this and encourage us to seek this application to invest in our valuable asset. So it's a huge community draw center and it's highly utilized. So we need to support this and good luck, please.
I would say ditto.
Okay, Michael?
So Michael, you're looking for a direction as well, besides filling out the grant or what to fill this out to, correct?
Yeah.
So on our report here, page 4 shows the graph of, yes, that right there, the combined basic critical maintenance repairs. That also includes some HVAC and some plumbing in that number?
Yeah, that would be the top number there for the MEP renovation. So in theory, that's supposed to encompass modernizing the HVAC, the electrical, the life safety systems, pretty much anything affected by the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing.
So you're looking for us to pick from a smorgasbord right here of what to apply for, correct?
Yeah, these are really just examples of a kind of general idea of what we could do. So it could be any, it could choose to apply for just one of those things, or it could be that combined thing to try and address all of them.
I would support the $5 million to $7 million improvements, but we'll let the rest of the folks still discuss.
Okay, Mendel?
I would support that as well. To be clear, that would be slab work and waterproofing, electrical, HV, AC, plumbing, and obviously the structural, and apply for the grant, as my colleagues have said. Excellent work. All of the questions that I had have been answered in prior meetings, so great job. Thank you.
Okay, anything to add down here? So just to be clear, we're talking about doing anything from putting a Band-Aid on what we have tried to repair before, which probably isn't going to work. Doing some more major repairs to the structure as it is, to adding some additional square footage for the library, and for city staff for a variety of different things, to actually tearing down, scraping the entire project and building a brand new library, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so the issue is when we're looking at trying to build a brand new library, we're going to be talking about having to go out to the community for a bond issue.
Yeah, in all, if we were to address that approach, that would be the likely scenario, because we'd have to find a funding source at some point.
Okay, and right now, the building's not unsafe, but the building is 50 years old. We have tried to do some repairs to it in the past, and they haven't worked. They've helped a little bit, but really haven't fixed the problem. But now that we had a full engineering report, we understand where some of the structural issues are, and it's not that it's not safe. It's that probably we should not have been holding events and driving vehicles on the plaza for the last 50 years.
Yes, and the current as it was designed does not come close to meeting code requirements for sort of what they call the gravity, effect. And that's exactly right. We shouldn't be having large scale in hindsight, being 2020 always. So
Yeah, it's easy to know that now. So I think the issue is we're needing to make sure and give direction as to whether or not we're talking about just doing the basic repairs to the current structure or moving forward with a much larger project. And it sounds like I see we have a motion and a second. And so it sounds like we're talking about just doing the basic repairs to the project that we have now.
yeah, and there's one other caveat that's in there is, as Michael mentioned, it's the funding, right? It's the 1-for-1 match. So I would think that what the council is asking us when they say the match or not the match is the amount, is that's the total amount of the project. And we would have to figure out how to request an amount less than that with the city match, essentially, is just as a way it's there. So when we're having council direction for a dollar amount, it's the total cost of the project, fully understanding the city will have to come up with a match of that's $7 million between 3.5 and $2 million, essentially.
So how much is in the library fund with the state, the overall fund that we can go after?
It's not, well, this specific funding, there's not really a library fund that they issue grant programs.
Right, but have they specifically, legislature put money aside? How much do they put aside for this?
This round has, I think I mentioned in here, I think they have 171 million. 175 million of funding is available in this round, which they anticipate being the last round of this. But the 10 million would still be the maximum. And that's actually applies to combined. So let's say we had applied for a round one grant, the 10 million is cumulative. So you couldn't, like, if we had gotten 5 million in the first round, we'd only be eligible to get 5 million in this round. And this is the end of this program for all intents and purposes. I mean, there's nothing to say they might do more, but where we are now.
Great, thank you for that.
And I would just say that what we're talking about so far is, includes, tearing off of the plaza top and wrapping some of the support beams, but the library won't look and feel any different. It'll look exactly the same. So when someone asks if we're awarded the grant, well, hey, where did $10 million go? You can just point to some of the joists in the ceiling and say there. At the same time, as part of the contract, and just to talk a little bit about timing, sometimes the state doesn't provide us the best grant funding timelines as possible. And so we didn't want to miss the opportunity to ask the council for dollars the state's going to provide, which, talking with Janet and her career, this is the largest amount we can ever think that's coming down the pipeline in one ask. At the same time, when the council asked staff to move forward with the contract, we included a visioning aspect. And so if we move forward with some of the interim fixes, there's still an and coming, which isn't a request necessarily for future money. It's that we would know from feedback in the community what a more robust project would look like. We'd still have that for a later date if necessary. So that's something to keep in mind, is that visioning process. And our community survey tells us the library in the last community survey is the #1 service provided or ranked in the city. We also know there's facility needs, which is articulated in the slide before you. So through this process, as we finalize the structural analysis and get final figures and final estimates and load calculations, we're also continuing with the visioning aspect.
Yeah, when I'm looking at the projects that were funded from the first round of this, there's only a handful of projects that were funded in an amount more than $5 million. Most of them, a lot of them were hundreds of thousands of dollars. So do we have any feel or any idea on the possibility of us being successful in this grant?
I mean, the grants are prioritized based on a poverty rating that they've determined. As I mentioned, though, the previous round, 18% of the grants went to cities that were the same or lower poverty, so lower prioritized than the city of Glendora would be. And several of those actually, I mean, the largest one of those was 9.9 million, which is just under what the maximum grant is. And there were several others that were quite large. There was almost no correlation in the actual amounts given and the poverty level of the cities applying. Now, the lower poverty cities got awarded more, obviously, since 82% of them were higher poverty than the city of Glendora. But when it came to the size, it didn't work like that.
Okay, and I'm seeing one grant. There was one grant for $10 million. They got the maximum. There was a few that were 9 million something.
But yeah.
Oh, was there two? There might have been two. But I guess I would assume that their projects were dramatically larger than what we're talking about.
Yeah, they were, some of them were complete, I believe, complete reconstructions or large scale remodels, but also our library is larger than many of these other. A lot of those libraries are branch libraries, so the system may have multiple libraries in, and the libraries will be like 15,000 square feet, whereas ours is 27,000 to 30,000 depending on how you measure it.
Okay, I just cleared out my whole computer screen. Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table, with the understanding that by moving forward with this, we're basically just doing the repairs to the library that could possibly give it another 10 to 20 years lifespan with no additional amenities or changes at all.
You're talking the $5 to $7 million
$5 to $7
range.
million.
Yeah, I would say if council would entertain an up to an $8 million figure, just a round number, that'd be helpful for us as we back into those numbers.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Freendo, seconded by Councilmember Davis. I will now conduct an oral roll call votes. Councilmember Ellis,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
Councilmember Freendo,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Thompson,
Yes.
Mayor Boyer,
Yes,
motion carries 5-0.
Thank you all.
thanks, Michael. And I completely lost my screen here. I clicked something, so we're good. Okay, well, that is the last of our item. I thought that'd be a much more robust conversation than what it was, but that's okay. We got the ball moving. At this point, reaching out, any last items for? Nope.
I'd just like to wish every mother out there and expecting mother a happy Mother's Day this coming Sunday.
Okay, Bill, Adam? Nothing? Okay, well, with that, I will adjourn our meeting at 8:32 in memory of Diane Norris.